Osiris.
Hey, Sugar Maple listeners. My name is RJ. I'm one of the executive producers here at Osiris. And we are going to bring you something a little bit different. We are in between episodes, and I wanted to take you all behind the scenes. And our first conversation is going to be with our director, James Masciovecchio. Hi, James.
How's it going?
It's going great. James, we're going to talk a little bit about your background and the work that you've done directing aside from Sugar Maple. But first I want to ask you, what was your first reaction when you heard about this story?
Well, I think my first reaction was kind of on the basis about the idea that it was a guitar and music and everything, which was super cool. I loved the format of a new musician each episode. It wasn't till we get to episode 4 and what you'll see in episode 5 that things got a little different, and that was really fun to kind of explore. And I don't want to give too much away, but just the twist that we get at the end of 4 really kind of hooked me into the story, and was maybe really excited to see where it was going to go.
That's great, and we appreciate you jumping on board with us. Tell us how you kind of made your way to directing audio.
Sure. So my background is mainly in theater and stage work, but I've always had a really love of like sound and sound design. Whenever I would do my shows on stage, I would design my own audio and all of that good stuff, and did it sort of as a freelancer for a time. And when the pandemic hit, some of my friends and I decided like, well, we can't do a live show. Let's see if we can do a podcast. And I've been a fan of podcasts for many years. You know, I think it started with Serial, like most people. And then, devoured like Black Tapes and some stuff from Q Code and other like really great podcast companies. And took a stab at writing my own, adapting a podcast from a short novel that I'm a big fan of, an old 1950s sci-fi called The Chrysalids by John Wyndham, best known for Day of the Triffids. It's a great story. Took a stab at that, and then started kind of looking around for more work, came upon Osiris and thought I'd give it a shot.
That is the pivot, to doing audio when the pandemic hit. That a lot of people did that, but you were able to kind of apply your expertise in a way that that's pretty unique.
Yeah, I did a lot of work in new works in general for the stage, and from producing festivals and directing my own, other directing shows for other people's new work, and being able to kind of come on board with that was really exciting to kind of help sort of take the story as written and kind of bring it to the next stage of development.
And so, James, just to the Sugar Maple process quickly, you were on these recording sessions. I mean, we have dozens of voice actors, and we weren't able to do a lot of this stuff in person. And I'm just curious, what's your approach like when you get on a Zoom with someone who's playing a character and they have maybe read the lines, but they aren't like, they don't know the story as well as you do. How do you get people to be ready and deliver these amazing lines?
Well, what's great is I've been able to sort of have a short session with every actor prior to them recording to give them a little bit of insight into their character, where the story's going, where their character fits into the plot as a whole. And then from there, when we get into an actual session, I will then read against them and rehearse the scene with them once or twice, just so they get a feel for where we're going. Since I have the knowledge of, depending on where we are in the recording process, of what has already been recorded, the intentions that those actors have given to the lines, I'm then able to kind of help support them and read opposite them with the breadth of context so that they can then deliver their lines in context as well. So then we read through it a couple times. I give a little direction, a little adjustments, and then we go into just asking them to do like 3 takes of each line. And we just have them kind of repeat it, different intentions, they try it a different way each time. And then basically from those options, we pick the ones that kind of fit the best. Sometimes what sounds great to me in the moment isn't necessarily what fits the context, in which case we'll swap it out for a different take. So it's been a bit of a puzzle. We can do our best to say like, this is the one we want. But then when we actually hear it, you're like, oh no, this line sounds way better on take 3. Able to kind of piece it together.
That is, it's obviously a lot of time put into this process. What's been the most rewarding this project for you so far? So being able to actually just hear sort of these episodes pieced together with all of the other aspects. I am very much immersed in like the script and the dialogue. Being able to then hear it with the design on top of it and then adding the music in there has been really cool because I am not someone who is very musically capable by any means. Can't carry a tune, can't play an instrument. But being able to now work with people who are creating, who have that skill set, and be able to kind of see their work layered on top of mine, even just things like hearing the guitar that gets played over some of Terrence's dialogue, knowing that, I helped craft at least the timing of that dialogue that then gets to be transferred into sort of something musical is really cool. Yeah, and our editor Brad has done a great job, along with Tom Sullivan, who's helped with the assembly of this and putting the show together. It's amazing to hear it come together.
Yeah.
And James, what's like the hardest part of a project like this?
I think just like the scope of it all. This was, I've said this before, Osiris didn't do this small. This is, your first create like fictional podcast, and not just doing like a 4-person kitchen sink drama. We went a sprawling 8-episode, 30+ character musical, which has been amazing, but also just like wrapping your head around the sheer scope of this project, I think is great though.
We definitely didn't do it small, for sure. We made an album and a podcast at the same time, which is quite an undertaking. In terms of the writing, how involved were you in the revisions and kind of getting the script to where it goes, and how does that contrast or compare with how you usually work with written material?
So it was actually a fairly similar process. Generally with new works, the director kind of comes in towards the later stage of a project. Maybe like for stage, a script will have 1 to 2 readings before some sort of a public presentation. For this one, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there were any sort of public or even private readings where this dialogue was spoken out loud. So what's interesting about plays is while they are written on the page, they are meant to be spoken aloud, and you don't always know what you got until someone comes along and actually says the words. So for me, sort of looking at the script through that lens, it's like the story is there and it's clear, but how can we come in and make it clear just with dialogue and just speaking? What are some of the things that, like, when you say this one sentence out loud, does it actually sound like a person would say it? It might be very literary. It might be something that reads really great, but when a performer actually speaks it, is it something that is easy to say and kind of comes off naturally? So that's kind of where I came in, taking a look, asking a few questions about, the plot and where things might be a little confusing, by the time I got involved, there were 3 other drafts that had happened. Numerous people had taken a look at it, and I was a fresh set of eyes who had no background at that point in what had been done before and what the story was originally. So being able to kind of take that fresh look and go, okay, this isn't reading, this isn't, but this works and this doesn't, I think is helpful, because as writers, you know what the story is and you know what it is. So you fill in those missing pieces on your own in your brain. But for me to be able to come out and say like, all right, this needs adjustment, this doesn't read, is, I think helpful to a writer, once you've been so immersed in it for so long.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you worked with a bunch of talented actors on this. Our narrator Fred Savage was, probably the biggest lift in terms of the voiceover work and the directing work. What was it like working with Fred, and did you learn anything from that process?
Yeah, he's he's a really great guy. He was a lot of fun to work with. We were working around his schedule. So a lot of this was, how do we get this done as fast as we can while still maintaining everything? And, we kind of took our cues from him. He's got so much experience in doing this kind of thing. So we let him we would rehearse it with him once or twice, and then we would kind of let him roll and just we would capture upwards of like 2 to 3 episodes at a time where we could, and just get as much as we could and make the best use of the time that we had with him. Super nice, really just pleasant to work with.
That's cool. I'm glad to hear that. And he's done a great job. I find it like fascinating that these actors are able to deliver these lines in a way that feels so authentic to the story, and knowing that they are recorded in the kind of method that you described. It's not, it's kind of amazing to hear it all come together. What are you most excited about in terms of the next sort of half of Sugar Maple, the last 4 episodes?
I keep describing the second half of this show as more of a road show. It's like at the end of episode 4, it's like we're packing the car and we're hitting the road and we're actively sort of investigating the story now. And I think that with the addition of Reba to the story, becomes a really fun dynamic between the two of them. So I think, episodes 1 through 4 are sort of a set. And I think that the structural changes that happen in 5 to the end are really fun, and they give the show a lot of energy to kind of carry us through the final half. So often you see like back ends of seasons kind of just either coast on what they've already done before, or even just kind of stagnate a bit. I think the fact that we kind of change up the story a bit in the second half is going to keep it really fun, really interesting.
Yeah, it's a really, I'm kind of glad that we took this little break, and because once we pick it up, it's going to be a whole, big ride toward the finish. So I've seen a bunch of feedback on the show. It's all been really positive and great. What have you heard from the people who've listened to, or from the theater world, or just people in your orbit? What's some like surprising or interesting feedback you've received so far?
Everything's been pretty positive. I try to avoid hearing a lot of feedback in general. I will be the type of person that gets kind of bogged down into it. But most of what I'm hearing from, friends and family is that they're enjoying the show, that the music is great. They're really, really digging the music, and the story. My father is a big consumer of podcasts too, and he's just really engrossed in it. And every Tuesday I get a text from him being like, listen to it. This was great. Love this. So it's been good. It's been good hearing the positive.
That's amazing to have that, to have a family member who's like on the edge of their seat. Oh,
he knows, like, when it comes to podcasts, he will be the one that and he'll tell me too. He will tell me like, this was, but he loves like fictional podcasts more than almost anyone I've met. He's listened to pretty much everything there is out there. Half of the stuff that I listen to, he's the one to be like, you need to listen to this. Watch this, new favorite podcast. Let's watch this. So yeah, it's been great.
Well, hi, James' dad. Thanks for listening. James, this was great. Thanks for giving us a little insight into your process, and thanks for getting on board and helping us put this together. It's an incredible amount of work, and you've done an amazing job. So thanks for diving in with us.
Of course, thanks for having me on board this project. It's been a blast.
All right. And we are going to come back to you again with another conversation. We're going to try to do a few more conversations with cast, musicians, our team. So we'll be back with another one of these in the next few days. So thanks, James, and thanks everybody for listening.
Osiris.